One challenge when using the model view controller pattern is keeping your controllers focused. Controllers are really the linchpin of that model view controller triad. They get to select the view that's going to render. They get to interact with the business object. They get to build the model. Because of this, they're in a position of power, and over time they have this natural tendency to collect too many responsibilities. What I've put on the screen here is the source code to an action in an open source project called Oxite, but this version is from many months ago. And you can see that the code barely fits on the slide, even in an 8-point font. If you were to go through the code, you see it's responsible for putting together some information for the page title, validating the model, fetching a user from the repository, setting an authorization cookie, redirecting the user back to the proper URL after they're trying to sign in, adding information to model state, setting up view data, returning the proper view. We've just looked through 5 or 6 different responsibilities inside of this controller. What you need to learn to do inside of your controller is make them almost as simple as possible. A controller action should only be maybe 4 to 10 lines of code, and it needs to delegate as much responsibility as possible into application services or into business objects or other components inside of your system that know how to perform useful work. Falling into this type of trap in your controller ultimately hurts maintainability because it's very difficult to come into this action and make changes and ensure that you're not impacting other areas of code. Hopefully you'll still have unit tests available for this controller action, and it's actually the test-driven development process that can tell you when a specific action or controller or a class in general has too many responsibilities. You can simply look at the test that you're writing against that class, read the names, and see how many different areas do they have to deal with. How many different tests do you have to write to make sure that the sign-in action is performing correctly? And how many different dependencies and responsibilities do those tests indicate that the action has? When you see an action is responsible for validation and setting a cookie and redirecting the user and selecting the view, then you know it might be time to try to extract some of that functionality into other classes that the controller action will utilize in performing its work. So you can think of the action more of an orchestrator that's using other objects to perform all the useful work that it needs to get done. In the end, you'll find the code is much easier to maintain over time when you break out pieces by responsibility.